Guys, we're gonna start the session now. Sorry for the delay from our side. Cool. So, Siddhesh, over to you.
Okay. Now, since a lot of things have gone into breaking the technical barriers, so okay, I was supposed to talk about anything I would like to talk about. So, and Bhargav insisted that I talk about my GP, but I generally start anything with a bit of history, and you cannot. We have already lost a lot of time, and we've already, I don't know, we have already been, I don't know, dismantled from some mindset, because of which I'll just say some names, and maybe because I see most of you are designers and uh, practitioners and artists and creative people, so I think you'll be able to imagine a lot of things from there. So I what I generally talk about, is basically the history of civilization itself. So it starts from the the cave paintings of Bhimbetka and other places. You see those paintings of bulls and hunters and rhinos and various kinds of horses, and you go further, and you remember the dancing girl from the Indus Valley civilization. You go further, and then you see the treasures of Egypt. You see Roman Empire. You see the mixing of Egyptian Empire and Roman Empire. You also see great empires like one of Mauryan kingdom. You uh, create this imagery of of Ashoka's empire. You move further, and you move uh, to the Dark Ages, to the Crusades, to the various wars on religion, which at that point of time formed nationals and republics of those times. You remember the Dark Ages, when where a modern woman, or a free thinking woman would be hanged, for witchcraft or wizardry, or you see thinkers being hanged or crucified by saying something which is very blasphemous. And you move further to uh, to the ages of Renaissance in different parts of Europe. You also see the Bhakti period in India. You see proses coming out. You see beautiful lines about peace and equality. You see Nanak traveling in the four direction. You see Buddha's sermons being recited by various Southeastern Asian countries. You see Buddha reaching China and Japan and Korea. You see the rise of Ottoman Empire. You see the rise of Orientalism, the carpets from Turkey. You see the bazaars of India. You see colonization. You see East India Company. You see Dutch India Company entering various land masses, and occupying them, colonizing them, exploiting them. You see an enlightenment era that happens, where people will not be called blasphemous because they've said that Earth is round and not flat anymore. You see modernization. You see uh, industrialization. You see modern slavery. You see capitalism. You see communism. You see death of hundreds and thousands of people because of communism. You see death of hundreds and thousands of people on yearly basis due to crony capitalism. You see the death of colonization itself. You see freedom movements around the world. It's not just us who got freedom in 1947. At that point of time, a lot of countries got their freedom. You see this concept of globalization, of economic liberty, of free market. You see the concept of feminism. You see the concept of LGBTQ rights. You see the concept of human rights, the concept of um, you know postmodernism, post-truth, and maybe rethinking of equality, with a new perspective, with the new classes altogether. And since Bhargav told me to talk about to start from my GP, so from all that imagery I'll go to my GP. So this is a small word for me. So when I went to NID in 2014, we had no interest in political affairs as such, and we did not had much inclination on left or right. I had not a very clear idea. I still don't have a clear idea about what is right, left, or center, or whatever. But we entered the college, the same day a regime entered a parliament, not the same day but the same year. Yeah. So for us, living inside that small group of like-minded people, of misfits, uh, made us do different things. Different people, as per their own individual aptitude, they tried to explore different kind of things, whatever they wanted to explore. What I did was, my project was, and it was a disguised attempt of doing something in the incognito of social design, or maybe other jargons which are related to social design. But it was like, when I think of it now, it wasn't really social design. It was more towards the psychology. It was more towards random exploration, which I still do not have uh, any idea of or direction about. My project was to develop design thinking process skills amongst housewives um, to develop self empowerment amongst them. If I think of it now, I would say that I would like to reframe it, and I would like to call it, developing self empowerment skills in housewives through design processes, which I implemented on my subjects, based on the study that was provided to me at the college, based on the kind of learnings that we attain from various institutes. And I just wanted to implement it on what I would now call subjects, because that's how maybe I treated them as a designer. But that was the start. It was based on various processes. It was based on various workshops and skill-based workshops and talks, and which had this major dream of somehow build a practice amongst these housewives, so that they leave this habit of watching television. And which was a very weird idea. It is a very vague and weird idea still. But yeah, that was it, the basic intent of it. And like, I used to brag about the story which I came up with for the start of the project, that every woman come with the Dahej ka dabba, and in which there are different kind of items. There is refrigerator, television, uh, there is sewing machine, there are various utensils, there are saris and scooter, or whatnot. And there are some skills that she carries with her when she changes her house and her name. And those are the skills that she has been learning for a very long time. And I thought that expanding on those skills would be the right methodology as per a designer. But when I look back at it now, it is somehow imposing something on somebody. Because when I see myself, I used to have a different kind of aesthetics 3 years back, and used to have different kind of aesthetics 3 years beyond that. And you grow. Maybe I might not be willing to do illustrations in the future. I would like to do sculpting or maybe make film or something else. So I was I was trying to give identity to people who themselves had identity, and so maybe I was like distorting the identities of those people. And the conclusion of the project was, out of the five, I started with 15, it got reduced to 10, and then got 7, and then 5 subjects remained. And then out of those 5, 2 started their own small enterprises, lunch house and a boutique. One was willing to start a yoga space and something like that. But I thought that is the success of the project, and I concluded in my documentation that the NID's learning curve does not work directly on adult learning, especially in such cases where the skills are somehow lost due to the cultural influences. So at that point of time, I did not really take away that identity. Every being has his, her, or their own identity, and I neglected that fact. And my truth was that they started their own enterprise, and they started, that is self empowerment for them. And I moved forward after that, and I moved to Pune, and there I still had no idea about what identity is. And there as an ironical thing to do, I started doing identity designs for others. So, and I was not really sure about if this whole concept of identity, if this whole concept of uh, everybody being a bit different from everybody else is right or not. I was not thinking that deeply at that point of time. I was trying to get my name in the commercial world. I, like every other designer or every other artist, I wanted to have an association with people, with organizations which are big, which are huge, so that I could make a name for myself. And if you think about it, if I think about it right now, I think about remaking my identity again, but without realizing what my identity is before. Pune gave me a lot of time to introspect about my visit to the West, which I did not introspect it for since the time I came back, because I was under the hangover of how civilized those people are, how nice their pizza is, or how clean their streets are. So I was quite mesmerized about that thought for a very long time, about the discipline that they carry and all that stuff. But these times in Pune, that it gave me a lot of time to retrospect about that visit to the West. And also, I Maharashtra is, I always joke with Patil that you will be burning buses, because Maharashtra is a very angry state. And it is, I felt that it is not about burning buses for no reason. It is like when you walk on the streets of of the older part of Pune, or near Shaniwar Wad, or and if you have, like, for me, I had no idea about Phule couple, so I had no idea about Savitribai Phule or Jyotirao Phule. I just have read some name, this is Jyotiba Phule Nagar in UP, at a random place in UP, but I never knew who this person is. And then when I started reading him, I started to feel as if he's walking around me, and he and his wife is lecturing people to bring reform. And I somehow felt very much related to his book Gulamgiri, which was his introspection of untouchability in India to the slavery in America. So somehow Pune gave me this very nice introspection time for everything, for not just the West. Now the West is amalgamating with Phule, and then Ambedkar is coming up, and then there are a lot of things happening, and then I'm meeting clients, who are not ready to understand what I'm trying to tell them. I like you do projects, and if when you really want to put your heart in it, you do a lot of research, you come up with a lot of explorations, and you take your own time to decide what are the options, or what are the final things that you want to share. And it's like growing a plant, or I don't know anything else other than that, because I never had pets. So yeah, it's like grooming a plant. And when you give those explorations to your clients, they just tell you what they have last seen on Pinterest, or what they have seen on some random website, which some Western company, or sometimes some Middle Eastern country, or some Korean company has done before, and they want to try to imitate things. And you feel it's like you do not always have confidence about what you produce, but you still you see that your work, your craftsmanship is being accepted. So that kind of struggle was there in Pune, and for that release, you have these Fully couple, and all these revolutionary, not activists, because they were more of an adventurers, at that point of time, because activism is something which has emerged up as a word, as a terminology now. But at that point of time, it would have been a sense of adventure, when a woman is walking, on the street, and she has a Brahmin lady in her house who is a widow, who was raped, and she's about to give birth, and her family wants to get rid of her, but Savitri Bai has kept her in her house. And that is something that you can't do as an activist. That is something that you do as someone who has broken those shackles of human level. You have gone beyond that, because your fear is, I'm not sure if what kind of fear they would be carrying, because there are stories about small kids hitting Savitri Bai with stones, pelting stones at her when she would walk on the streets, which is a very weird thing to think about. Which is a very it breaks all your ideological imagery that you have created because of the mainstream media, or the films that you have seen, or the novels, or the books that you have read. So that was the whole point of Pune, was basically this introspection part. And I started to take part in various kind of protests, on seminars, started to meet people, more than meeting, talking to people on phone. I got into communication with some very important people who were working really, really well in that part of the country. And I realized that there are things that you can do with this as well. So this gives me a bigger motive than producing 3 exploration each time, and then get rejected in those exploration, to just do what they want me to do, to imitate their imagination. Sometimes their imagination is just it's just not possible, because if you think about it, you cannot really draw something which is very impossible. You can draw some things which are near to impossible, not something which is very impossible. You cannot draw a perspective that doesn't exist. So so sometimes when because everybody thinks that everybody is a creative person, but not everybody is a designer, because you have to attain skills uh, to understand design, and to perform design, to practice design. And that's what sometimes people don't understand. And since they have an imagination in their head, and they want to implement it, they do not know if this is possible thing or not. And they will never be happy, because they have already made their mind that this is something that we want out of this person, or out of this resource, or out of this human resource. So that 3 exploration, each thing did not really work well for me. And I thought of, maybe I should try to be a little bit like Jyotirao or Savitribai, more like Savitribai Phule, not like Jyotirao Phule, but more like Savitribai, and maybe, try to do something on my own. And I came to Delhi, Noida basically, and I had no idea how to. I asked my parents for 6 months time that I might need 6 months to uh, get known by people, or get into uh, a thread of people where I start to get work on regular basis. But uh, and somehow my parents are quite optimistic about things, so they were like, okay, you do that. And they asked me how much money do I have, and I did not have much when I left Pune. So it was a very crucial time. And again, Mr. Arvind Patil called us to Goa, that we should go to Goa. And this is a very important part, because I had recently changed the cities. I had recently changed the style of work which I'm going to follow. I'm going to change the whole concept of art and design. I had a very clear idea about, there is this thin line between art and design, and this is art and this is design. And when I took you from those cave paintings to that whole modernization era, when I think about it now, when I think of it as one picture, as one feature film, I don't see this line anymore. I like, there is no line between art and design for me anymore, because at times I am designing my art, and at times I'm being an artist to design something, to find a solution, because I do not have these this overlapping happens, and there is no clarity of this line anymore, because I don't like, I'm way more confused about this thin line between art and design from where I started when I joined NID. Now, what Goa brought was this whole thought process of this blurring of line. We were in Goa, and we were doing random things. Everybody does random things in Goa. But randomly, we happened to go to this concert of Nurani Sisters by Coke Studio, and there I sometimes, as a human being, get you get not just hyper, you get bonkers. And you feel that that something is cooking inside you, or inside your own mind, inside your own head, which is going to blast sometime soon. So that's what happened with Nurani Sister. They were singing Allahu and everything, and there is an anti-CA protest happening, where everything has become majoritarian and communalist and anti-Islamist, very Islamophobia phobic world. It has emerged as that. And in a place like Goa, there are these two sisters who are singing song about Allah. And that was the moment I changed my Instagram handle from Bakery Prasad to Bakery Prasad Azad. And it was not inspired from Chandrasekhar Azad, or of our times, or the time before we had, or the Azadi slogans that were misused in CA protests, because the Azadi slogan comes from Kashmir, and that is a different kind of Azadi from the Azadi that was being chanted in Shaheen Bagh. But that kind of uh, thunder, I felt inside, and I was not just enjoying it. I was somehow charging my battery to come back again, and get back to to the start, because I was about to start something. So I came back here, and I started doing things randomly. I've been doing a lot of political work since a very long time, since Pune. And it was here I became totally into political work. I started to write. I started to writing was a good thing that happened, speaking was a good thing that happened here. So I never knew that, you know, I would ever be earning by writing and I would be earning by speaking, because people used to, I still remember, you know, people showing me though their cunning eyes, you know, that this guy is spending, you know, 6 hours in Kopcha speaking. And, you know, I remembered all those faces again when I first got my payment for speaking. I was like, okay, you can earn for speaking. I never thought about it at Kopcha. So like I would have had done it more often there. But yeah, but that you know, that whole confidence, and that, you know, that you develop from, you know, different kind of stages of your life. And I just started with, you know, my journey from NID till now. And this is, you know, there is a lot of ups and downs that have gone emotionally, physically, and economically. And I've realized that, you know, I think it was the design management course in which, you know, they said that everything in this world is, you know, divided in 4 parts: economical, social, political, and cultural. And I have started to believe that, you know, that is really the case. Whatever process you follow, or you know, your wisdom will take you to those 4 attributes, which basically divides the whole world and basically unites the whole world together. So yeah, I think I've spoken a lot.
Okay, cool. Uh, Great. So thank you, Siddhesh, for uh, talking about pizza, Dahesh ka dabba, Nuran sisters, and certain nuances about your life. Uh, so the guests, we can have a couple of questions now.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can shoot the question.
nobody is shooting the questions, man. Nobody likes me. There are
Okay,
raised
just
hands.
a moment. Someone has raised a hand. Uh, okay, Vaibhav is here. Yeah, Vaibhav, go
Hi,
ahead.
Vibhav.
Hi Siddhesh.
Hi, Vibhav.
First of all, it like I really felt like connected to the society after a while. अभी ऐसे isolated था, and I have been even the readings have changed a bit. You only read something that is utilitarian to the course or something. You go around that. So my question is a very basic one. Okay,
Yeah,
so I have been reading a lot of works by people from Europe and how they express artists, and like how they emphasize on how important is an artist for the political stance of our country and all. Whereas there is this second school of thought which is called a designer. Okay, so I just want to know about that. How different do you perceive both are, and how important for a designer is to be like some amount of artist, or you're getting my point, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is my
You,
question.
you know, when you are basically, you know, maybe not anti-establishment, but, you know, you're for some cause, and you're working for some cause or something like that. So I think you cannot just be an artist, because when I see, you know, I can't, at this point of time, I can't just make something that pops up in my mind, because uh, it does need to have a backbone, a spine of its own. Because I'm questioning the very spine of a system, of a leader, of a party, or of an ideology. So I need to have that spine. So if you see all the Western artists and designers who worked towards causes, you know, they basically designed their art. They implemented aesthetics which were either easy to produce or easy to share, or they wrote proses, or they wrote you know, manifestos which were easy to read or easy to comprehend. So it is always a designed art if you are uh, dealing with a lot of people around you. And if you just want to have it, in an exhibition, for certain kind of people, you can, explore anything you want. But otherwise, you'll have to design the art. I'm not sure if I justified.
Like it, I'm still a bit confused, but the basic, uh, like, what do you think is the difference between an artist and a designer? And like spit a bit, because I in NID only, I have met some people of very contrasting thoughts. Some would even say, like, if you are not doing something political, you are not an artist. I've heard this comment in, and sometimes it goes like, ki, ergonomics is more important than anything. What are you doing? I'm saying I have never been clear about the point, like if one should be like socially responsible through politics or not, in how different this artist and designer thing is. Like, what is an artist, what is a designer? That
See, what in my talk I said that that line is getting even blurrier for me.
Hmm.
But the thing is, people are individuals, people are different, people think differently. Some people think that ergonomics is the first and the foremost thing, but they'll go to the place where ergonomics is first and the foremost thing. There are different people, and there are different infrastructures and different platforms for those people. So if you just have to find out what you want to do. It doesn't have you are it will not be you who would decide that your work was political or not. If it will be the historians who will decide that your work was political or not. So there are a lot of artists who did not do anything which was very political, but they are still considered political artists by art historians. In your free time, sometimes search, find out how Guernica was made by Pablo Picasso, and that is one of the biggest conflict art imagery that we have, and the story behind it is very different from what we perceive of that huge, humongous piece of art. So people will be different. They will have their own kind of platforms, and confusion is the best friend of a designer. You will remain a designer till you are confused. The day you have clarity of mind that this is political, this is apolitical, or this is ergonomically right, this is that way right, or this is the right way to do things, then your whole concept of brainstorming goes away. So when your brainstorming doesn't happen, you will not go to the iterations. When you will not go to the iterations, you will not go to the prototype, and you will not go to the prototype. So there is a lot of process that is being killed when you're sure about things. So once you're just unsure, you'll be able to explore more. And I don't know, maybe yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Thanks, Siddhesh.
Okay, thanks for that. Siddhesh, we have a question from Sukanya. Uh, just I'm using this platform for the first time, so I'm exploring it. Can you read the question? How do you think can people
Yeah.
be informed in a world like today with bombardment of fake information?
Actually, fake information has been there since a very long time. This is a time where we have understood the importance of fake information. The fake information about various cultures, about these guys are criminal community, these guys are that, Brahmins don't eat meat, and there are different kind of fake informations always. Now with internet and with fast information processing, we are now breaking those fake information. So I think we have started to undo something which has been happening for a very long time, and I think it's happening slowly, but it will, and there is a lot of uh, confusion, and this whole postmodern era also brings this concept of post truth. So the truth becomes different at different point of time. So the truth is relevant to the time frame or to the situation or something, and all those things. So I think we are dealing with that kind of ideology as well. So people will be more informed. We have realized that education is not the only thing which is going to bring any change in the world. And I think it was understood during the time of the two great wars, the two world wars. But we somehow in India we are realizing it now, because we never had those wars. We never fought that way for our freedom. So the kind of transfer of power we had, and the kind of revolution that we had, was way different from what French Revolution or Russian Revolution had, and or even Cuban Revolution had. So there is this whole enlightenment era that is missing from the Indian context. So now we have started to inform ourselves through this fake information era. But I am still not sure what information is truly right at this point of time also, because the counter of an information is made so quickly, and it seems it is imitated so authentically that from the truth also it is very difficult to find what is the real truth or what is the real fact.
Thanks for that, Siddhesh. We have one more question in the question box. Would you like to talk more about your current work, then the political activism in Indian context, and it's a multi-layered question basically. And the third part is one should participate actively or just be a silent observer. It's a long
See,
question. I will post it in chat box also.
silent observer is also participating actively, actually, because being silent is being on some side, because being silent is you can't be pulled by two horses on two different directions. So even if you are saying that you're silent, you have somehow made a compromise with one of the horses, that I'm not going to say bad things about you or him or the other horse, but I'm going to silently be there, and you just do not talk about it. About my current work and political, I would not call it political activism as such. I would call it art activism, because I know these things have not been there in this country for a very long time. If you go back, our best propaganda posters are also made during the time of British era by the Britishers to lure Indians to fight their wars. So art in India has always been considered as a thing of privileged, but I think it's a very modern ideology. But it is not the case. I do not see Guru Nanak or Mirabai or Ravidas or Kabir Das be very rich. I don't see Ghalib to be very rich. If you hear his story, he had to sell his house. So, but this modern notion in India is like, that it is for the privileged and it is by the privileged. It is not for the privileged, because art is in every house. You cannot live without art. You choose, if you have that privilege, that you'll choose, the color of the walls that you have. You buy calendars, you buy different pieces of kitsch, and you buy different kind of stuff which is basically intended to be a form of art. So I don't know, art is always there. And why, and when I am talking about art activism, it is not a term which has been accepted by Indian people, because there is not been much written about it by the Indian people. There are a lot of things about art activism being written during great the World War, First World War and Second World War, where people were fleeing, great artists. Bauhaus on which our own campus was based, had to face fascism, and they had to rebuild themselves, they had to rebuild their ideology, they had to escape, they had to, some of them surrendered to the Nazis as well. But yeah, that is something that we were taught, but we were not basically exposed to. So art activism, what I am doing, like I have a very vague goal of of playing my part in Dalit art and Dalit aesthetics, because it is, for some time I've been a part of this movement. I've been, I do a lot of work for this movement through visual imagery. And it's not just about Ambedkar or just about Phule or just about the oppression. I want to, express, what is the community's love, what are the different kind of traditions that this community has had and have been following, and I would, like to tell you about, I would like to discuss a bit about this Hathras case, because there was this very, I received a lot of messages, because when somebody wanted to say something from, especially from upper caste, they would, ask me that whether it is right or wrong. And there were a lot of questions, especially from the feminists, that came up, that they are women at, at first, and they are izzat and all that thing. And when I go back and look at my own society, it was, the portrayal of women by the media, कि हमें उसकी इज्जत बचानी है और ये करना है वो करना है, was not the way it is in my community. We never had this concept of palla system. And I started talking to my mother about, how your family, the new family treated you. And she told me that, your grandfather and your grandmother sat and told me about safe sex and about periods at that point of time. And I realized that, okay, this is something that I have, not imagined in my own community, because I've been portrayed as somebody, who is oppressed, who have, have not, who's barbaric in nature, who eats pig, and that's the, who lives in the most ugly places of the towns. But that was that whole thing missed the whole point of the feminism of my own community. Like when I see my grandmother is way more powerful than my grandfather, because she was a sarpanch, and I do not have a memory of a very machoistic grandfather. I have a memory of a macho grandmother, who is, along with her friend, sitting in the veranda smoking hookah. So that whole concept, it tries to, flips for me. And when I see that, so and this, if I think of it, rationally, I see that, women were going out as much as men were for the economic needs of the house. They were doing as much labor as men were doing for the economic, for the need to fulfill the needs of the house. So that's why they demanded their own uh, place in their own families, because of which we had women like Savitri Bai, we had women like Phulan Devi, who went to the extreme of radicalism, because it is somehow there, there is that anger is there in the women of our community, which has never been portrayed like that, in the society. And which also, inspired me a lot to go towards art activism and make it a thing in India. I'm basically doing a lot of visual imagery for various Dalit organizations. I work closely with a lot of young political leaders to, to do their communication design, and to do campaign designs, not for votes, but for campaigns like freeing political prisoners, on campaigns like hearing of Article 317 in the Supreme Court, and campaigns like against CA or NRC, and campaigns like anti-farmer bill. So there are, so basically I do these kind of things, and I try to use my skills to to basically communicate things better sometimes for not all the classes, but most of the classes which can read visual and basic language. So that's what I'm doing at
Uh,
towards art activism.
okay. Uh, we have Meher here, but just I'm receiving questions from other channels also. So I received a question on WhatsApp. So many social groups cannot afford design, but they need it. So how design activists or art activists can fulfill this need?
See, the best example of fulfilling this need was given by NID itself in various projects like Javajar project, where they worked with a group of people in Javaja. And I recently was talking to my friends, and somebody questioned me that you talk so much about community and cultural and identity politics, and you did a craft documentation, and what did you do about that? What did you do about that tribe, or to the community of people and you were working with? And it really made me look back, because at that point of time I felt very smart, because I was doing something different from the rest of the class. That's the basic aim of being in an ID, that you do not produce something which is being produced by other people. So your whole ego is dependent on how unique your work is. So I wanted to do something unique, and I did not want it to, as a student of apparel design, I did not want it to explore that lehenga and that blouse. So I wanted to do things with tattoos. So I collected different kind of tattoos that they had, and tried to find meanings. I collected almost 140 or some designs, and out of which I could come up with meanings of less than 30, and which I called very unsuccessful project. But still, somewhere I felt that I did something which not everybody else was doing, because in Gujarat you'll find basically Gujaratis, and you'll find the basic way of making a lehenga or a kedu. So there is nothing very different in that. I was quite uh, charged up about what I did then. And when I think about this question now, I think that as an NIDian who has been taught India Report and about Lota, I failed the whole ideology, in every project, in most of the projects that I did at my college, in my college, and somehow I'm trying to, fulfill that void that was created. Now I do not think that I can. It would be very logical to go back to that village and work for those people, and when I can find a community around me, and be more empathetic, and be more logical, and be more cautious with them. And yeah, so
Great. Meher,
did it justify?
Hi,
you
Siddhesh.
answered what you.
I really appreciate your work and the narratives that you're driving of the political prisoners and the Dalit community. The things that you
Thanks.
talked about Priyanka Paul as well. Uh, but for a long time, I've been in this gray situation, or like a opinion about how digital activism actually, puts forward the conversation. As in, I mean, there could be a man sitting in Kolaba on his, leather couch, sipping on wine or something, but then tweeting things which are, which probably, in context of slacktivism, it's performative in nature. And but on the other hand, I also think that it's very democratic in nature, because we are hearing voices that we never had before. But then
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
See,
How
I get your point.
how futile does it get
Yeah,
at a point,
see,
and what is the future of this?
yeah,
Like, I want your thoughts on that.
it is something that has happened before again, because in the past time, now we have a different platform of doing these things. Now we use Instagram, Twitter, and whatnot, other platforms. There are websites where people do a lot of things. And this is very similar to what we had in 1920s and in late 1930s and 40s, when independent journalism came into boom. Now, even in India, when you think of it, when Bhagat Singh was on trial, when he actually bombed the assembly, he was basically sharing content. He was there, sharing the red pamphlet of his party, that we are against imperialism. So now the platform is different. Now
Mm.
you see Prashant Kanodia, he is still in jail.
Yes.
And, this is because of one tweet. So if one tweet can, get you behind the bars, that means that that tweet is doing something. And it has always, see, there are always two kind of movements. There is this movement is a very bourgeois movement that we are a part of.
Mm.
We are very privileged people who write in the language of very what who call themselves civilized and very
Mm.
fashionable friendly people. And but yeah, our things get documented. We get way more documented than the real protesters who sit on Jantar Mantar at times. The recent photographs that came up of farmers eating mouse,
Mm.
that happened when I was in Pune, and there were very few people who agitated about it. And when I saw that picture, I was wondering that if it is the same protest. But when I did my research, I realized that, oh no, these are the same people and doing that protest again. So at that point of time, they had skulls and bones of their uh, of the people who committed suicide. And it is an extreme form of expression which is very artistic in nature in itself. They shaved half of their head and half of their mustache and beard, which is a very much like performance art of France or of Italy, when we see in those Western books.
Mm.
But it is very similar. And so these two things will happen at two different platforms, but these two things are very effective, because till the time both of the things are getting you inside the jail, or getting you vulnerable of using your own fundamental rights and civil rights and human rights. So that thing is somehow making that change. So that just independent journalism does not exist anymore. I've worked with a lot of magazines and curators who call themselves independent journalists, but they are not. Because independent journalism, if you see of the 1920s and 40s, they were talking anything. Even Bhagat Singh's pamphlet was talking very rationally about a lot of the tall figures of that country, of this country at that point of time.
Okay, good. We have Kritika now. I'll hand over mic to her. Mm,
Why did you decide to choose illustration as a medium to convey? Do you say you say something?
Siddhesh,
No.
we have Kritika on stage. We will take her question. Then we
Yeah.
have two more questions.
Yeah.
So then we will wrap up the session. Kritika, over to you.
Sorry.
Uh, we, Kritika, you are not audible. Hello? Hello? Uh, okay. We'll wait for her. We can take the next question by Vasudha. How slash why did you decide to choose illustration as a medium to convey? Do you see it as a tool for behavioral change in India?
So I decided to choose this medium because I was, polishing my skills on this medium only for a very long time. So it was easy way in for me. So that's how I started it. And I now write as well. So the medium is changing. I might change to some other medium, but I do see it as a tool for behavioral change in India, because I'll give one example of one campaign that we did for Professor Anand Dil Tumde when he was in jail. So we asked people to write letters to him on his birthday. And a lot of people had no idea about who Anand Tumde is. A lot of people get to know about him through my post or through the posts, who were sharing similar kind of work. And he, received a lot of letters. Now, since I was running his campaign and I was in touch with his family members as well. So, I knew that, he's being denied books, he's being denied, even a pen and paper to even write, and he's a scholar. So his whole life is about, reading, writing, and, this is what his life is. So he's being denied of that basic thing that, he think the goal of his life is. And he received this, this hundreds of letters. The people doodled, people wrote poems, and different kind of things. And now imagine yourself in that position when, if you are a daily doodler. Imagine if you're a daily scribbler, you scribble every day, and you are put behind bars. You're not given, you take care of your body very nicely. You dye your hair, on time. You're old, you dye your hair, at time. You are 70 and people think that you are 50 because you have maintained yourself, and you are inside the bar, and you can't do all those things to maintain yourself. And your whole perception of life changes. The only thing that keeps you keep surviving is your books, which are being denied from you. And and imagine these hundreds of letters pouring in. This is something that you will be reading for after a very long time, and something you would be reading in maybe wrong language, wrong grammar, but that doesn't make sense. That is something out of context at this point of time. This guy is reading something about him after such a long time. He is assured that there are hundreds of people outside, who is waiting for my return, who is fighting, who is being my voice when I'm inside, when I'm being shut by the establishment. So I do think that these things does bring those behavioral change. In this recent Hathras case, I have started to receive a lot of texts and mails regarding that a lot of people saying that they're trying to understand their privilege, and they're trying to be an ally, how to be an ally. This was not even a point of talk a month back, or a couple of months back, of being an ally of a community. This community was seen as people who, like Article 15 has shown, they are those people who have come without merit, those chote havaldars जो reservations से आए हैं. Now you see these women of who are advocates in various courts. They are human rights activists. They're working for United Nations, who belong to the community, and have great communication skills, have great content to share, great stories to share, great work to share with you. So this this sometimes this tool works really nice to amplify these voices. And yeah, I guess at least for us bourgeois, it is happening. I'm not sure how it is reaching.
Okay, cool. Great. Uh, we have a question from Sumit. Again, it's a multi-layered question. I'll read it out for you guys. Do you see change of perception in biases and misinformation through your illustrations with embedded intended message? You get from responses of expanding audience through social media. Basically, he wants to understand more about how people are responding to your artworks, your thought process. Maybe you can talk about it. Just give me a second. After that, I will take question from Kritika, and then we will close the session. Great. Yeah, Siddhesh.
So, Sumit, people see it differently, at different. See, there is a lot of a play that trend plays in this thing. There was a time when I would write about Ambedkar and Karl Marx and Buddha, and people from all the community getting bamboozled about what the hell you are writing. You can't relate Ambedkar with Marx and Buddha, but he himself has written this book called Marx and Buddha. So what can I do? It is just an excerpt from that. Most of my thing is basically excerpts of various books or essays written by different people. So people, yeah, people do, tell me to, to go read India, India and partition, Pakistan and partition of India, and I've read it, and uh, I do not see, sometimes see people want to implement their agenda, and people say that I have my own agenda. I do not have an agenda, to be very sure, because I don't think I'm smart enough to set an agenda right now. So I just share what I feel really close to my heart, or something which is very new that that I've read or come across. So I share mostly those things, and they will be misinterpreted. They will be misunderstood. But I don't, I try not. I Because I used to write differently before. Then I tried to make my language a bit different later, and I even worked on my visual imagery. I was trying not to go towards the abstraction part of visual imagery. So I was trying to be as much, literal as possible. I was trying to be as minimal as possible, and I'm doing that still. But some people, they are just following some other people's agenda. So if I ask them to, go read the book, though they'll not go and read the book, and it's their privilege that they will not go and read the book because they can. I get this thing all the time, that I'm not fond of reading books. So that's a very big privilege that you have, because I do not have that privilege. Even if I do not want to read a certain book, I'll have to read it, because I cannot go wrong. Maybe you can go wrong, I can't go wrong. Because I go wrong, my forefathers will be questioned, my whole merit will be questioned. Once I go wrong, everything will be questioned. Everybody else can go wrong, and they can say sorry, and they can give these things that if I say that I have no interest in reading books, your Ambedkar gave you this whole concept of education. Why don't you do it? Why don't you take it properly? So I get all these kind of very weird reactions from the liberals and leftists and right wingers and centrists or whatever.
Cool. Thanks for that. Next, I'm taking the question from Kritika. So, what part do you think can art activism can play in the lit struggle in today's context, considering just the number and intensity of crime that continue to be carried out against Dalits? So, her question is, this was about the context, and the question is, how can keep themselves motivated in these difficult times where artists are being threatened. So yeah, basically conceptual art,
Yeah, FIRs are being lodged, you get hate messages, you get these threats of, getting an FIR
right?
complaint against you. So you get it a lot. Actually in India, as I mentioned before, there are these two levels of, working in the visual medium. So as I also do that, I'm working on a Gujarati pamphlet for Jignesh, and it is not for people on Instagram or on Twitter. It is for the people who are in the village. So that visual imagery has to be designed in that way, that that communication design has to happen that way. I have to use that kind of script which is communicable to them, which is comprehensible for them. So that kind of activism is also happening. A friend of mine recently was working on, with Swaraj Party, with Yogendra Yadav, and he was working on, communication design for the protest for the farmers against the farmer bill. So that is also happening, and that is happening in a very small, for us maybe it is in a small scale, but it has been there. Now also look at this imagery of different bastis of especially the Dalit community that you see. So it is about illustration. It is about those surreal illustrations of Buddha giving some Ashirwad rays coming out of him to to Ambedkar, or Ambedkar riding a horse, or different kind of various cultures of Ambedkar pointing his fingers to move forward, to educate, agitate, and organize. So these imageries have always been there. So whenever diksha happens, whenever uh, uh, 14th April happens, Ambedkar Jayanti happens. So people have this imagery which unites them, in a very unconscious way, so you see those flags of the Dhamma Chakra everywhere, which is done by those those artists on the local level. You see those very differently designed pamphlets and posters around certain movements of certain communities. So it is there in that part also. But since we are speaking designers and artists, so we generally tend to ignore that part. So there are a lot of people who are working in that, with those people with on the ground, who are really making change due to due to art and due to art activism, which they might not get documented for that. They might not get recognized for that, but they are there because you, in every protest, in every get together, you see those pamphlets, you see that glimpse of graphic design and illustration in every meetup that happens. And there was some other question that you had, no?
So we had a question from Amit, but I just wanted to make some announcement considering time.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah. So firstly, sorry, we faced some technical issues. So for Siddhesh, we are going to host another session with the community. It can be uh, kind of a Bate session where we can ask more questions to Siddhesh. My reflection on this conversation was you took a liberty to contemplate at your own pace and try to come up with some artifact, and the nature of artifact has changed over a period of time, but there is a consistency that it is aligned with some social cause, like your graduation project, your current work, right? It was women centric, entrepreneurship for women. Current work is about art activism. So we would love to see more work from you, and we'll host another session with you.
Yeah, today I'm going to share a love story
Ah,
for a change.
yeah, excited to see that. Great. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you a
you.
lot, Siddhesh.
Thank you. Thank you,
We
Pardo.
managed this session after a lot of technicality. Like we are having three things layered. Like we are having video from Google Hangout, which is going to my screen, then being
Yeah,
streamed to the feed, and Siddhesh's feed is coming from another side. So
yeah. I'll
thankfully,
share the story of that arrangement.
yeah, sure. I think we'll have a short discussion session in the future.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
will be good. Okay, then I think we can close it.
yeah.
Thank you everyone for coming and asking questions, staying around for a while.
Thanks, guys.
See
Thanks
you
for
again
bearing.
in session.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Arvind, you can do the close event.
Okay, I can end the session now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
somebody do that. I don't know how does this work.